So, it's been nearly 5 years since I made my original video on Super Mario Bros. And I'll be honest, I have no idea how I got more than like 3 minutes out of that. But I honestly haven't exactly been sure how I should continue talking about all the pre-3D 2D Mario games. Should I give each one their own video? Should I just skip them and move on to the good stuff? And my ultimatum? Well, you read the title and the thumbnail. We're having an extravaganza bonanza! I'm gonna talk about all the pre-3D 2D Mario games in one long video that will surely drive me to drink, or end me in the hospital, or a dumpster. Who knows? So before I get going, some ground rules are getting set up. First rule, I'm only talking about the games released between 1985 and 1992. Anything before or after that is off limits. So no Donkey Kong or Mario Bros. Also any spin-off material is not getting talked about, so no Dr. Mario, no Mario Paint, none of the edutainment games, and especially none of the games that feature other characters as the main protagonists. So to start off, even though I already talked about it nearly 5 years ago, we're starting off with... Now, I know I've already done a whole video on Super Mario Bros., but that was my second ever video like this, and so therefore, it's bad. Super Mario Bros. Launched on the Famicom and NES in 1985. It completely revolutionized how video games would be moving forward. Up to this point, most video games were high-score-based romps, where the whole goal was to get, well, a high score. It was rare for games to be anything else. On top of that, Super Mario Bros. Was a major player in revitalizing the home console market, a crash that began in 1983. Super Mario Bros. Would go on to be the best-selling NES game and the 10th best-selling game of all time, partly because it would end up being packed in with most NES consoles. Now, how does it feel to play Super Mario Bros. In the modern day with a modern lens? It's fine. You don't even need to look at this game from a back-in-the-day lens. It's one of the few NES games that have actually aged pretty well. And if you're someone who is more familiar with more modern 2D Mario games, there won't really be any surprises. Everything plays how you would expect it to. There's a few small things that wouldn't get added until later, like bouncing off enemies or being able to pick up and throw shells, but just about everything else works as expected. Nintendo did a fantastic job laying the groundwork for future Mario games with Super Mario Bros., and Nintendo is obviously proud of that fact, especially when considering that the game has officially been released on almost every single Nintendo console and handheld. Now, while Super Mario Bros. Is super cool and super awesome, Nintendo would fumble the sequel. If Super Mario Bros. 1 is the poster child for what a Super Mario game could be, Super Mario Bros. 2 is the exact opposite. It's the aggressive teenager that lashes out and calls you slurs over Xbox Live game chat. Now, if you're someone who is unfamiliar with game localization from the 80s, then you're probably saying, hey, that's not Super Mario 2. This is Super Mario 2. And you'd only be slightly correct. See, in 1986, Nintendo released Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Famicom Disk System, an add-on for the Famicom. I won't go into too many details about the console here, but if you want more info regarding the Disk System, I'd suggest this video by the Gaming Historian. But the version of Super Mario Bros. 2 that Nintendo of Japan released on the Famicom was deemed too difficult and too similar to the original by Nintendo of America, and thus Super Mario Bros. 2 was born. We'll get to that in a minute. Eventually, the original Super Mario Bros. 2 would make its way over to the States in the form of Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. It was a part of the Super Mario All-Stars collection on the Super Nintendo. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush with this, but Nintendo of America was right to keep this game out of the States. Compared to some games today, this game is easy, but compared to its predecessor, successors, and sister game, Super Mario Bros. 2 is ball-bustingly difficult. There's a poisonous mushroom. There's impossible jumps that can only be cleared with hidden invisible blocks. There's wind that pushes Mario around. There's new red piranha plants that don't obey the rules of normal piranha plants. Trampolines that launch you off screen and even over the flagpole on one occasion. There's more levels that loop forever if you don't take the correct path. You can even find warp zones that take you backwards. One particularly mean level in my opinion is 7-3. It's far from the hardest level in Super Mario Bros. 2, but it just goes to show how much of a dickhead the level designers were. This level has Mario jumping on trampolines that send him to space, mixed with the wind effects. You have to jump from tiny platform to tiny platform, all while not really knowing where Mario actually is. Like I said, it's not that hard, but it's scary not knowing if you have Mario lined up right. But the aura surrounding Mario 2 isn't all doom and gloom. Mario 2 is built on the first game, so besides the new additions, the game plays just like the first one, with the addition of being able to bounce off enemies for added airtime. But the biggest contribution that this game made to the Mario formula was Luigi, or at least how Luigi controls. This was the debut of Luigi jumping higher and being a bit slippery, but it is a bit underappreciated here, partly because the US version of Mario 2 would do something very similar, but much closer to what more modern games do. Okay, now I'll talk about the real Super Mario Bros. 2. Super Mario Bros. 2, released in 1988 on the Nintendo... Wait a minute. This isn't Super Mario Bros. 2. Well, actually it is. This is Doki Doki Panic. For the uninformed, this is also Super Mario Bros. 2, or at least it will be. In 1987, Doki Doki Panic released for the Famicom Disk System. Once again, an amazing video by the Gaming Historian talks about this thing. Doki Doki was developed as a collaboration between Nintendo and Fuji Television, a Japanese TV network. After Nintendo of America rejected the original version of Mario 2, Nintendo reworked Doki Doki Panic into what became the North American and European versions of Super Mario Bros. 2. Now, I understand that this game has a bit of a cult following, and to some, this is the best Mario game on the NES, or even the best Mario game in general. But I'm just gonna say it. I don't like this game. I might even like it less than the other Mario 2. The biggest reason I don't like this Mario 2 is because when I play a Mario game, my brain is wired to play these games a certain way, and Super Mario Bros. 2 takes everything I know about playing Mario games and throws it out the window. Jumping on enemies is gone, now you have to throw vegetables and other enemies to defeat them. The traditional platforming is done away with for something more exploration-based, something Super Mario World would end up doing so much better, partly because it mixed it with the platforming I associate with Mario games. We'll get to that later. Power-ups are also not really a thing. Instead of mushrooms or fire flowers to fall back on if you get hit, Super Mario Bros. 2 uses a more traditional life system. Finding mushrooms hidden in each level lets you increase your max life, but this resets each level. Now that's not to say all power-ups are gone, the 1-up and star power-ups are still here. sparingly. All of this combined just makes Mario Teal feel so much slower than the other Mario games. Granted, all of these issues are because of Doki Doki Panic getting used as the base. It was easier and less time-consuming to sprite swap some things than to reprogram the whole game to play more like the previous games. I mean, at that point, you might as well just make a new game. But as just a game, Super Mario Bros. 2 is perfectly fine. But as a Mario game, yeah, not so much. Now, I don't want to completely trash on Super Mario Bros. 2. Now, unlike the previous Mario 2, our Mario 2 was far more influential to the Mario franchise. For starters, more enemies in this game would go on to be classics. Shy Guy, Birdo, Bob-ombs, Pokies, Ninjas, and several others would go on to have pretty prominent careers in the future Mario games. And some of the bosses like Mouser, Fry Guy, and Tri-Clyde would go on to be repeating villains in the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Super Mario 2 also introduced other abilities for Luigi, Peach, and Toad. Just like in the Japanese version, Luigi got a higher jump and slippery feet. Peach could glide temporarily, and Toad could run fast and pluck vegetables faster than anybody else. It also introduced the high jump, crouch down, build up some power, and then let it rip. Despite not liking Super Mario Bros. 2 all that much, I can't deny the impact that it's had on the Mario franchise. But I could still live with never playing this game again. Super Mario Land holds the title for the first portable Mario game. The Game & Watches don't count. Released in 1989 alongside the Game Boy, Nintendo's new handheld at the time, Super Mario Land was revolutionary in the fact that it created a Super Mario Bros. Quality game on the go. Before this, Super Mario Bros. On the go looked something like this. Yeah, now you can see why I'm giving Mario Land so much praise. That being said, being the first portable Mario game does mean that Super Mario Land has had some growing pains. The obvious being that it's in black and white or green and dark green if you're playing on an original Game Boy. The physics are also a bit wonky. Mario's very floaty in his jump, but can still somehow stop on a dime. The game is also incredibly short, like you could beat it in less than an hour short. Now, unlike Super Mario Bros., there are many aspects of Mario Land that can completely throw unexpected players for a loop. For example, these aren't Koopa Troopas, these are Bombshell Koopas. They explode. Or this isn't a fire flower, it's the Super Ball flower. Imagine a killer bouncy ball that can also collect coins for you. Or what about the Bullet Biffs? No, I didn't get the name wrong, look it up. They come out of pipes like piranha plants though. There are also a lot of enemies that predate more familiar enemies like the Sue, which behaves a lot like what would eventually become the Thwomp, with the addition of being able to kill it by jumping on it. But none of that matters. None of any of this matters, because Super Mario Land did one thing that in my eyes is the greatest thing ever. It was the debut of Daisy. Best girl, anyone who disagrees with me on this can fight me. I need to stop ending sentences with that.
What would you do if there was a starving content creator in front of you, all alone, crying, and near death from a lack of subscribers? But what if you had just one moment, one chance to make a difference and save this loser's life?
Hey!
This is that loser.
Come on, what did I ever do to you?
And this is that moment, that chance to save some poor idiot's life. And all it takes is one subscribe. So go online to youtube.com/@BennyYT2004 and subscribe today. It'll give this loser the critical validation he needs.
Why did I agree to this?
If you go online right now, you'll receive a free gift consisting of a tote bag, a sad feeling, and a man outside your window. So please, go online now, because this idiot can't wait another moment.
What happened? How did I get here? But how would that get me landed unconscious in the hospital? It's always the Wendy's employee. Well, I can't stay here. I have a video about Mario games to finish. You brought my stuff? Oh, thanks. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. While US gamers were none the wiser, Japanese gamers and Mario creator himself, Shigeru Miyamoto, were famously unhappy with Super Mario Bros. 2. It was really seen as nothing more than an expansion to the original game. So when it came to making a third Super Mario Bros. Game, Miyamoto didn't waste this opportunity to make the ultimate Mario game that would push the Famicom and NES to their limits. In the late 80s and early 90s, the video game market was quickly evolving. In 1987, NEC and Hudson Soft launched the PC Engine, a 16-bit console. It started out selling the Famicom in Japan. Sega was getting ready to launch their new 16-bit console, the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis for us over here in the States. The 8-bit Famicom and NES were starting to look pretty obsolete, and it would be another few years till Nintendo could launch the Super Famicom. So Super Mario Bros. 3 had to be more than a sequel. It had to buy Nintendo time to finish the Super Famicom. When Super Mario 3 launched in Japan in 1988, it became the best-selling Famicom game in the country, but us scrubs in North America would have to wait 2 whole years for the game to come out. While bits and pieces of Super Mario Bros. 3 were being shown off in the US leading up to the game's release, actual video gameplay of the game wouldn't be seen until 1989. What you're currently watching isn't some live event like E3 or a video game competition, it's a movie. In December of 1989, Nintendo and Universal launched The Wizard. I won't go into too much detail as it could be a whole video on its own, but The Wizard is about a boy named Jimmy who is obsessed with getting to California. His older brother Corey runs off with him to get to California, all while their dad and a bounty hunter are hot on their heels. Along the way, they meet a girl named Haley, and they find out Jimmy is really good at Nintendo games. Nintendo specifically. This was basically an hour-and-a-half long ad for Nintendo. They enter Jimmy into the Video Armageddon gaming tournament at Universal Studios, and this is where many kids in the late 80s saw gameplay footage of Super Mario Bros. 3 for the first time. Roughly 2 months after The Wizard launched in 1990, Super Mario Bros. 3 officially launched on the Nintendo Entertainment System. The game sold like hotcakes. It was constantly sold out everywhere, and not because of scalpers. eBay wasn't a thing yet. Despite the launch of the TurboGrafx 16 and the Sega Genesis, NES sales numbers continued to soar, all thanks to Super Mario Bros. 3. There was a ton of hype around Super Mario Bros. 3, but was it deserved? Was Super Mario Bros. 3 so good that it deserved such high praise? Yeah, Super Mario Bros. 3 is easily the best Mario game on the NES, maybe even the best game on the console. It pushes the hardware to its limits to create one of the most in-depth Mario experiences. There are tons of levels, tons of power-ups, tons of new enemies and bosses. There's the overworld map, and each world has its own unique theme, and the music. Oh, the music. It's some of the best. Super Mario Bros. 3 is also the best feeling game on the NES. It feels much better to play than Super Mario Bros. 1 or 2. Those games still work very well in the controls department, but something about Mario's movement in 3 just feels sublime. That being said, the difficulty, Super Mario Bros. 3 isn't as hard as Mario 2, but it is harder than the first game. It walks the edge of being accessible to new players and not being accessible to new players. Some secrets can be extremely obscure to new players, some levels just have BS obstacles and enemy placement, and I think Mario 3's biggest cardinal sin is not having a battery backup. I mean, come on, Nintendo, it's 1990. You couldn't have given Super Mario Bros. 3 a battery backup? Not even a password system? Yeah, Mario 3 has no save files. Your only option was either never shutting the console off or use the warp whistles to get back where you were. But in all honesty, this really doesn't affect my enjoyment of this game. Super Mario Bros. 3 is by far one of the best 2D Mario games. It has the first ever flying power-ups, it introduced the Koopalings, it brought back Mario staples in the US after Super Mario Bros. 2, it got a cartoon, a Happy Meal tie-in. Super Mario Bros. 3 is incredible and will go down in history as a beautifully crafted Mario game. But I don't really care, because just a year later, Nintendo would drop an even better Mario game, and probably the best 2D Mario game in the pre-3D era. In 2015, a magazine by the name of Retro Gamer Magazine asked its readers what their top 10 favorite games were for their issue about the 150 best games of all time, and the number one spot was Super Mario World. It's not hard to see why. Super Mario World was the flagship launch title for what is easily Nintendo's most acclaimed console, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or Super Famicom if you're from Japan. Super Mario World didn't just show off the capabilities of what the Super Nintendo was capable of, it also redefined what a Mario game could be. When Nintendo launched Super Mario Bros. 3 in Japan, the Famicom was suffering from declining sales. Like I mentioned earlier, Sega was getting ready to release the Genesis, and NEC had been slowly taking market shares away with the PC Engine. This was the complete opposite in North America. The NES had been the best-selling toy for 3 years in a row. It was in over 20% of American households. But despite that, Nintendo knew that their 8-bit system was ready to be retired. Super Mario Bros. 3 was used to buy Nintendo some time to develop a new system. It wasn't hard. Mario 3 was 10 times the size of the first Super Mario Bros. The Mario team put everything they had into Super Mario Bros. 3, but after development they had no time to rest because the higher-ups at Nintendo told them to get to work on Super Mario Bros. 4, or what we now know as Super Mario World. The goal was to have the game done and ready to launch the same time as the Super Famicom was. Development of Super Mario World began with the Mario team making a souped-up version of Super Mario Bros. 3 for the Super Famicom, and working from there. Mario 3's influence on Super Mario World's development can be seen in early screenshots and gameplay videos taken during development. The sprites, power-ups, and most other visuals took on a Mario 3-like appearance, but many magazines and other news publications that were able to see Super Mario World complained about how similar the games looked to its predecessor. Eventually the whole game got a facelift, becoming more like what we see in the final release. Some other elements were also changed, the big one being the game's flying power-up. Originally it was supposed to be the leaf, but sometime after the game got its visual facelift, it was changed to be the cape feather. But easily the biggest thing, or should I say character, to come out of Super Mario World's development was Yoshi. He was originally planned to be an addition in Super Mario Bros. 3, but hardware limitations at the time prevented this. But the Super Famicom let him become a reality. Eventually, after a delay in 1990, Super Mario World and the Super Famicom was released in Japan. But there were initially no plans to bring the Super Famicom to North America, another big brain move by Nintendo of America. But they actually had a reason. Unlike the Famicom, the NES hadn't seen a drop in sales. They had just launched Super Mario Bros. 3 and the Game Boy. It would be stupid to launch a new system at a time like this. But eventually pressure from the Sega Genesis and the TurboGrafx 16 would force Nintendo of America's hand, and they brought the Super Famicom and Super Mario World over stateside. Now it was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. When the Super Famicom launched in Japan, it was nearly impossible to find, but the Super Nintendo was a bit of a different story. There was pushback for a while, mainly on the lack of backwards compatibility, but also the price. Boy, that's hitting a bit close to home. But the pushback was pointless, as the Super Nintendo would end up outselling the Genesis and TurboGrafx 16, both of which had a pretty substantial head start on the SNES. Okay, boring and probably unnecessary history stuff over, let's actually talk about Super Mario World now. Super Mario World is, in my opinion, one of the best 2D Mario games, second place just behind the newest 2D Mario game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It completely redefined how Mario games would be. It added so many elements that we see in modern games, and the game would no longer be just about defeating Bowser and saving the princess, it was also about exploration, finding secrets and exploring a whole new world. Exploration was made possible thanks to all of Mario's new moves. The spin jump and the ability to toss turtle shells upward are some of the most common moves used to find secrets, along with the new Cape Feather power-up and Yoshi. But easily one of the biggest secrets in Super Mario World is the Switch Palaces. These would activate blocks throughout levels that could unlock more secrets or make the game easier in some areas. And that's one of the biggest draws of Super Mario World, is its difficulty was much lower. It wasn't so easy that veteran players would get turned off, but it also wasn't so hard that it busted the balls of new players. It found the perfect balance that Nintendo originally tried and failed to get with Super Mario Bros. 3. Visually, Super Mario World is also superior to its predecessors. Granted, that's partly due to the more powerful hardware making the game look better, but there are just small details that help the game pop that much more. Like how when Mario's little, he's got little dot eyes, but when he's big, he's got fully illustrated eyes. Or when Koopa Troopas get knocked out of their shell, they wander around in their underwear until they find their shell to climb back into and continue on with their day. Unless they're the new yellow or blue Koopa Troopas, the yellow ones will climb back into its shell and become invincible before relentlessly chasing Mario, and the blue Koopa Troopas won't actually get in their shells once they find it, they'll actually just grab the shell and toss it at Mario. A lot of classic enemies behave differently like this now, most likely in an attempt to make them feel new and give players a break from how they were in previous games. Like for example, Goombas can't just be stomped on, they just flip over when jumped on. You can then pick them up and toss them around. Bullet Bills have a new variant called the Bonsai Bill. These are huge, nearly unavoidable guys that were most likely done to show off how the Super Nintendo could do bigger sprites. Actually, who am I kidding? This is exactly what he's here for. Same with this new Boo variant, the Big Boo, not to be confused with Big Boo. This guy is meant to show off how the Super Nintendo could do transparency. Now, fancy tech demos are only half the game. How the game plays is the other. Like I mentioned earlier, Mario has a ton of new moves, like the spin jump and the ability to toss shells upward. Mario also gets a new flying power-up that I'll admit took me an embarrassing amount of time to learn how to use. I mean, come on, give me a break. I was still in kindergarten when I first played this game, and I was far more concerned with my Wii Mario games at my younger age. But the Cape Feather is far more impressive of a flying power-up than any of the ones that came before or after it. And obviously I can't forget Yoshi. I mean, what do I even say here? It's Yoshi. Who doesn't love Yoshi? He's versatile, immune to jumping on spiked enemies, and he makes for a great second chance when I fumble a jump. But Yoshi does have one unique ability in this game that isn't in any of the other Mario games. Remember just a moment ago when I mentioned the Koopa Troopas getting knocked out of their shells? Well, Yoshi can eat those shells for different abilities. The green shell does nothing, but the red shell will make Yoshi spit out a wall of fire, the new yellow shell makes Yoshi stomp the ground defeating nearby enemies, and the new blue shell makes Yoshi fly. There are also different colored Yoshis that will get their corresponding shell abilities no matter what shell they eat. Red spits fire, blue flies, yellow stamps. Sadly, this is the most in-depth Yoshi will ever be moving forward. Every mainline Mario that uses him moving forward would pale in comparison to Super Mario World. Ultimately, Super Mario World is some of the most fun you can have in a 2D Mario game. It's challenging enough, it's got plenty of secrets, and everything comes in one amazing Super Nintendo-sized cartridge. Or a Game Boy Advance cartridge if you're playing the 2002 re-release that in my opinion is the definitive version, even despite some of its shortcomings due to being on the GBA. If you've never played any of the games in this video and absolutely have to play one, I would say play Super Mario World. Super Mario Land 2. Super Mario Land 2. Super Mario Land 2, I feel, is the game that many skip when talking about Mario games. It's mostly known as the last 2D Mario for a while game. It's very overlooked, which is a real shame because it was the debut of Wario, and it's easily the most technologically impressive game on the Game Boy. I mean, a Super Mario World-like game on the go? Who wouldn't want that? But that's really all I can say. The game is admittedly very forgettable. It doesn't carry the same weight behind it like Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World did. It tries to be a Super Mario World on the go, and I mean, it certainly looks the part, but it lacks a lot of the exploration and secret hunting that World had, which was honestly half the fun of the game. But one thing I will say that's super impressive about Super Mario Land 2 is its more open overworld map. The only linear parts are the first and last levels and the mini overworld maps in each zone. But you are free to choose which order you tackle each zone, something that Super Mario Bros. Wonder would surprisingly reuse over 30 years later. And I really like that each boss is completely unique in each zone, something Super Mario Bros. Wonder would not reuse over 30 years later. One of Mario Land 2's biggest issues is the controls. In the first Mario Land, I feel like Mario's floaty controls could be excused some. I mean, it was the first portable Mario game and a launch title for brand new hardware, but there is a nearly 3-year gap in between Super Mario Land 1 and 2, and somehow Mario feels worse to control in the later game. Like, I can't fully put my finger on it, but it suffers from all the same problems as the first game, and then some. Part of it is that Mario just feels slippery. In the first game, Mario could stop nearly instantly. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know the reason why this is, but I like to think it was done to compensate for how floaty Mario is. But that on-the-dime stopping isn't here anymore, but the floaty jumping is. Another big issue is the game's flying power-up. The Raccoon Leaf in Mario 3 was designed with a stamina system in mind to keep players from skipping the whole level. The Cape Feather doesn't have those limitations, but it requires much more skill to pull off and skip large portions of levels. The Carrot in Mario Land 2 has neither stamina or a skill ceiling, just a slow descent. But if you manage to get high enough, you can just glide over entire levels. It cheeses a significant portion of this game. In fact, cheese is actually a reoccurring theme in Super Mario Land 2. In this level leading to the Space Zone, you can float over the level in this bubble. There is almost nothing stopping me from skipping the whole thing. Same with the boss level in the Space Zone, almost nothing is stopping me from skipping the level, and even the boss is easy to cheese. Just stand in the corners and you basically avoid everything he throws at you. The game is full of these cheese moments that are glaring and hard to miss issues. When the level isn't able to be cheesed and can be played like, well, a normal level, these aren't half bad. But the inconsistency and difficulty is so hard for me to overlook. Speaking of inconsistency and difficulty, this final level sucks. The whole time you're playing Mario Land 2, it's like a 4 or 5, maybe even 6 at best on the difficulty scale. Wario's Castle is a 10. This is the biggest jump in difficulty in the whole game, and it's not even close. And if you get a game over here, you lose all the golden coins and have to do all the boss levels again. It's not a big deal, it's just a little annoying. Like the US version of Super Mario Bros. 2, I want to like this game, but honestly, I'd rather just not come back to it again. Alright, that's it. That's all of them. That's every single 2D Mario game that came out before Super Mario 64. And no, I'm not talking about spin-offs. I already said I wasn't clear back at the beginning of the video. I don't really have any final thoughts, only that the small Super Mario Land 2 community will hate my guts for saying that the game isn't a 10 out of 10 experience. Just so they can't get the satisfaction. Rose, I'm gonna need your help with something. Can
I have my $5 now?